Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Wherever you at, you're right where you need to be. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Pelicans Daily presented by Fan Arch. Dylan Bruton, your host. How we doing? How we doing? Well, the scene has been set and the NBA Finals is here, baby. One step closer this Thursday, we gonna see who is going to emerge as champion this series. You know what I'm saying? Y'all let me know who y'all think. Indy and OKC, I'm excited. That's some good ball. You know what I'm saying? I know it's not the big markets, but it's cool. It's time for the underdogs to shine. And who's more of an underdog than us? You know what I'm saying? It's time for us to shine. And it's time to make sure that we make smart moves, smart decisions. So, perfect way to kick off. A couple episodes ago, I talked about the Nets and the Pelicans getting into trade talk, and in particular with a Mr. Cam Johnson. Now, Cam Johnson is 29 years old, one of the best three-point shooters in the league, has valuable playoff experience as an off-the-bench player, and is a solid starting small forward in the league. You know what I'm saying? Last year, put up career highs across the board in points, rebounds, and assists. Great shooter again. Was even on the Olympic team in 2023 that played in the World Championship. Now they didn't win gold, but still, right? He's built a nice cachet. He's built a nice pedigree for himself. So we all know we struggle with shooting. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to win in the modern NBA when you're ranked in the 25 and below. You know what I'm saying? As far as attempts and three-point makes. You're just not going to win. I'm not saying we need to be out here spamming threes left and right, not doing nothing else. No. But looking at things logistically, tangibly, you ain't winning if you don't have some good floor spacing. Just how it goes. Given that we might lose some of our floor spacers. I know. I don't even want to think like that. I don't even want to put those thoughts out there, but we have to be honest about the situation. Since that report, right, about the untouchable players, guess what? There's no untouchable players on this roster. None. Even Zion isn't safe, as you will see. I got to talk about him at some point. And so if everybody is touchable. Everybody can be moved, can be traded. That means we have to look at things logistically. Who makes sense for our team fit to potentially make a playoff run now, or who makes sense for our future? Those are the two things that we're going to be looking at. A Cam Johnson is a now type of player. 29 years old. He knows his game. He knows what his role is, and he plays it at a very effective high level. You know what I'm saying? 19 points and 40-plus three-point shooting is a net positive. Don't get it twisted. Now, all we would have to give up, but also what we would gain, is very interesting. So we would have to give up CJ McCollum, my guy, you know what I'm saying? But unfortunately, easily the most expendable on the roster. Not even up for debate. Easily the most expendable. Just the nature of the beast. Age, contract, timeline. Those are three things working against Mr. CJ McCollum right now. And you could say injury, but he hasn't been, too injury and snake bitten. You know what I'm saying? That's not been his problem. He's been he's been one of the more healthy players that we've had the last 2-3 years. So, but age wise, you don't know how he's gonna bounce back. So you throw injury into there, puts a monkey wrench into some things. But this is where it gets a little tricky. So now, while we would get Cam Johnson, and we get the 19th pick because, the Nets have 4 first-round picks. And they're definitely going to be utilizing the leverage that they have. This is a very strong draft class. There's a lot of good players that could be drafted outside of the top 10. I ain't going to put money on it. But I have good faith and I have good optimism that in the second round, there's going to be some gems. There's going to be some guys that are going to be full-time starters. There might end up being someone who is actually a really good player. You don't know at that level, but I think there's going to be guys that are coming out this draft first and second round, who are going to get a lot of minutes off bat right away. This is a very talented class. It's a very polished class. There's a lot of guys who are NBA ready to step in game one of a grueling 82-game season and go in, get the job done. So, we would get the 19th pick. Woo, right? Yeah. We'd also have to give it the 7th pick. No! That's the only thing that makes this trade hard. Now, this is my proposition. If we trade CJ, if we're so quick to trade him, I would just rather do the trade straight up. If we're being real. But is Brooklyn going to go for that? Brooklyn is trying to figure themselves out. They got some guys like Cam Thomas, Nick Claxton, but they're kind of in a limbo of like they don't know whether they want to rebuild or if they're going to build for the future. They brought back D'Lo. Everybody was hyped, because D'Lo was a bit part of their resurgence a bit before they got Kyrie, KD, and Harden, even though that was incredibly short-lived. The Nets have been through a weird last few years, make no mistake. So they're trying to figure out, like, what is their actual plan? What is the course of action? This trade, I think, it works out well for both parties, though. I don't want to give the 7th pick. I think that we can get someone special at pick 7. Whether it's a Jeremiah Fears, a Trey Johnson, whether it's a Konkanopou, whether it's a Kamal Malak. There's a lot of possibilities in this draft. A lot. I've talked about a lot of these guys already. And there's more to talk about. There's more to cover. But thinking about the team fit, thinking about what we need now, we need shooting, and we need someone who is able to play a valuable role and who's able to, know what he has to do out there. And that sounds really cliche, but seriously, we have to get to a point where we've got guys that they've got experience with playing at the highest stakes. Cam Johnson went to an NBA Finals in Phoenix. Granted, they lost, but still, we don't have many guys on this team who have serious playoff experience. This is a very young team. A very young team. Doesn't mean we need to become the Colts of the NBA. Sorry, Indy. Have a bunch of old guys, but we can still build a culture. It's all very possible. So I'm not opposed to this trade. I don't want to give the 7th pick. I think I think we're gonna come away from this draft with a great, great player. So I'm not with the idea of giving up the 7th pick, but I will understand if this trade is made more than a lot of the trades I've heard so far. This one though, I think this isn't a bad one, and I think it works out for both sides. I think Cam Johnson would come in very well, and God forbid we get rid of Herb or Trey or both. Really don't want that to happen. But God forbid something like that nature happens. Now you got Cam there. That next man up, and you have a damn good next man. You have a damn good player to put there next up. So, speaking of next man up, speaking of guys coming off the bench, Mr. Thomas Bryant, played a big game on Saturday in sending the Pacers to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2000, knocking off the Knicks. Couldn't get more poetic for them. But he had 11 points hitting 3 threes off the bench. Anytime as a big man you can come in and hit 3 threes off the bench, gotta look into it. 6'10", 248 pounds, 3 seasons of over 40% shooting, great locker room guy, career 35% 3-point shooter, unrestricted free agent, and it'd only be a cap hit of $2.8 million. For a contract of $2.8 million, you could do a lot worse. You could. And think about this. Right? You put him in a lineup with Eve. You have floor spacing, and then you have 2 guys that are going to play physical ball inside. Kind of like 2 Sentinels. As y'all can see in my background, I'm a big comic book guy. So, think of it from the X-Men universe, the Sentinels. But if you have guys in the paint that can play strong defense interior wise. Yes, the NBA is not a interior game anymore, but still, it still holds value and matters. And as long as you can space the floor, as long as it's not crowded, it's not there's no blockage in the offensive play calling and the way that y'all move the ball, then you're good. You're right. So I want all of y'all, this NBA Finals especially, watch a lot of Thomas Bryant, number 3. We could bring him in. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things realistic about an offseason of bringing in a guy like Cam Johnson, bringing in a guy like Thomas Bryant, right? These are veterans who have played in the league for a long time, played on some good playoff squads in their day and age, can space the floor. They know what type of job that they need to do and get done. We need those type of players. Lunch pail, you know what I'm saying? Hard hat, get ready to work, get ready to grind. And speaking of getting ready to work, getting ready to grind, you know what I'm saying? I have the full and utmost belief in this young man that he's going to do that this summer, and he's going to come into the new season kicking it. My guy, Zion. Well, Mr. Zion Williamson is not untouchable. As much talk as I've been talking about of Zion being untouchable, about Zion being like the one constant, right? The one player that under no circumstance will he be moved. That's just not the case. That's just not the case. So, as a result of Zion not being untouchable, if we have to get rid of Zion, we're going to need a lot. We're going to need a lot. Going to need the farm and more. You know what I'm saying? But that's where who has the assets, who has the resources to put that together. That's the kind of the flip side to trading a star, right? Obviously, no one had it in their bingo card that the Mavs were going to get rid of Luka. That was a whole that was like an extra clip in the chamber that nobody saw coming. That was the plot twist that nobody saw happening. But I mean, you kind of knew that the NBA wasn't going to let the Lakers just waddle into mediocrity after LeBron, but convo for another time. But no one saw the Mavs doing that, is what I'm saying. People see this one. There's been enough talk about it. There's been enough talk about it going back to 2 years ago. So the only way that I believe in good faith a trade can be had and can be made is if you get the right pieces and the right package for Zion. Zion averages 25, 7, and 5 when healthy on nearly 60% from the field. And this is without a 3-ball. This is without a face-up midi. This is without, you know what I'm saying? Like this is a guy who's still developing. But make no mistake, a lot of scouts talked about, can he replicate his play style into the league? For better or worse, you can say yeah. And it's led to success for him. There needs to be more. He needs to be more consistent. He needs to, you know what I'm saying, get his weight under control. These are all legitimate critiques and ways that he can improve himself so he can improve his game. I do believe that he needs to add and develop his post game, needs to get his mid-range right, and if need be, get the 3-ball decent. Doesn't need to be, you know what I'm saying, you don't got to be KD, but can you, if left open, can you hit a 3? That's all. But the Heat would be the team that would most likely put together the trade piece. And before I go any further, shout out to Pelicans Debrief for the Cam Johnson trade and for the Thomas Bryant free agent article. Okay. Because I'm all about staying my sources. I'm a journalist, you know what I'm saying? I take that very seriously. So 2 websites talked about the possibility of Zion going to the Heat. Number 1 was TWSnet, and RK wrote the article. Shout out. We would get in exchange for Zion and CJ. It'd be sad to see CJ go, but again, it makes sense. It makes sense. And this is actually, to me, I think this is a really good trade. I think this is like one of the only Zion trades that I've seen so far outside of like if we can trade. Well, no, if we get Giannis, it's probably going to have to be through a third team or sell the house, sell the house and the farm. You know, like it is not going to be easy to get Giannis. I want people to definitely take that into consideration when you think about the type of player that Giannis is and how he's been able to impact the game. So we would get Andrew Wiggins, who, number one pick for number one pick, 2014, 2019. Crazy, right? There was one point in time where I and many others thought he was going to be a face of the league type of player, if not the face. It's unfortunate. But Maple Jordan has carved out a good career for himself. He's still been an all-star. He won a championship on those Warriors. He's a good starter. So, Andrew Wiggins. Terry Rozier, Scary Terry. Scary Terry's a guy that very tough as an offensive shot creator, but because of how much he leans into the offense, he's doesn't really have those point guard instincts. You would rather have him come off your bench as a sixth man. In that Lou Williams, in that Vinny the Microwave Johnson type of role. That's the type of player. Nick Young, J.R. Smith. That's more so Scary Terry than a starter. But hey, who knows? But he's been in the league for, Wiggins has been in the league since 2014. Rose has been in the league since 2015. So you get two veterans who are very experienced, have played some big playoff minutes, and they know what it takes to win. So it never hurts to have those type of guys in the locker room, especially as an influence to the younger guys. Another name that's part of this trade, so there's two more players. Very interesting player for many reasons more than one. But Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson, as a player, was a guy who had to fight and scratch and claw his way into the NBA, and he's emerged as one of the best three-point shooters. Now, that contract that he was given a few years ago, pretty ridiculous in retrospect, and when you look at things, I get, the Heat being excited of like, oh, we found another gem that nobody talks about, right? We turned another guy who looked like he could have been hooping in a family league at LA Fitness, and that's not talking down on Duncan, but just like he's not your atypical hooper. He doesn't look like he's going to go out there and cook you, but Duncan can hoop. I've seen him play live. He's not a great defender, but he's not like a cone out there. It's just that when you compare him to other top, other players on the Heat roster and some other top guys, it's like, okay, yeah, we can't even have this combo. But if we're talking top three-point shooters, Duncan Robinson is definitely one of them. And shooting, being ranked 25th, maybe a little lower depending on if it like percentage and takes, all that as a stat. We need spacing. And everyone so far can space the floor. Now, this next player, very intriguing because he's got a lot of versatile potential. He can do so many different things. Jack of all trades, master of none. But I think his potential is very high. Jaime Jaquez Jr., you know what I'm saying? I think that he's a player that the Heat should try to build around. But, hey, if they want to go ahead. If y'all want to give up, I get he had a sophomore slump. But if y'all want to get rid of a young player that has all-star potential, that has the ability to do more upon a given role, a increased role, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong in an instance like that. So, you know what I'm saying? Because Jaime can do a little bit of everything. On the offensive end, he can create his own shot. He can create for others. He can catch and shoot. He's athletic. Defensively, he plays well in front of his man, dives for loose balls. You know what I'm saying? He's got the ups, he's got the vert to be able to block shots, and he's got the ability to steal the ball as well. So, 4 players for the price of 2. All right, that's a positive start. Then 3 picks. 2027 first round pick and 2029 first round pick and 2027 second round pick. Now that second round pick, that's not the highlight of this trade. But the 2 first round picks though, can't go wrong with that. You can do a lot worse. And if you have 2 first rounders, that gives you more opportunities to draft guys for your future, draft more guys who are, potentially going to be star or okay, let's not go too far. But contributing players at the very least. You're gonna, that the goal is to get as many first round picks because that's where the best players are gonna be. But at the same time, we would also be able to use that as trade bait. You know what I'm saying? People are always going to be looking for youth. Youth is the biggest, greatest currency in the NBA, right? You think about it, right? You are discounted now in the draft process being a junior and senior. Make no mistake. because the scouts are going, why don't you leave? What was preventing or causing you to not leave? But also we're in the age of NIL, so they that's changed kind of like the complexity of college sports. So, things are still kind of being figured out. But yeah, so looking at that trade, looking at the amount of assets that we would get, player-wise and pick-wise, I would hate to see Zion going, especially to the Heat. Oh my gosh, they would unlock him on a whole nother level, and we would never hear the end of it. And they would become one of those teams in the league that you at all, in no way, shape, or form, can ignore. So they would get better, but their depth is definitely going to struggle. And that is where we would be able to potentially recapture some of our momentum. We'd potentially be able to recapture some of our previous stability. And I'm all for getting guys that still have a ceiling, still have a high ceiling, right? It's not the end for them. What's to say that Andrew Wiggins in an increased role doesn't play with a different sort of mentality than he has these last few years, being a deferred type of player? Who knows? Who knows? Then looking at someone like Jaime Jaquez, what's to say we know what his potential is going to be realized into? We don't. He's young. He's only played in the league for 2 years. You just don't know. He has a lot of ability that goes on both ends of the ball, and he's a guy that plays hard. You like those type of guys who are going to go out there, give you 110%. Does not matter the stakes, the risk, nothing. So, some food for thought, something to think about. But I like this trade. I don't want to get rid of Zion. I'm very much still in the camp of don't get rid of Zion. But it could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse because the other trade package, although y'all got to let me know if y'all think it's worse or if it's better. This is another trade package, though. This is on the Heat Sports Illustrated. Shout out to Alex Toledo. So, Wiggins, consistent. He's still going to be there. But instead of Terry Rozier and instead of Mr. Duncan Robinson, Kyle Ware. Now that, I ain't gonna lie. When I was reading that trade, I was like, all right. Thinking about this, right? Thinking about the way that Yves Missi is as a player. Type of player that he is. A front court with those two. Now, granted, they are far from where their ceiling could go. They're both young guys, but we're looking at where their ceiling could go, their potential, and the multifaceted ability that they both possess. With Yves as a, lob threat, as a defender, getting more double-doubles as well. And Kyle with his ability to play at the basket, to space the ball a bit, space the floor a bit, to be able to handle the ball a bit and be a great defender. You know what I'm saying? So they're checking off multiple boxes. It's getting spicy. Then Pelle Larsson, who, off the bench player, kind of interchangeable, but doesn't hurt. And who knows, what type of role he plays with us. But then Hami, Triple J, who I was just talking about. So he still would get Hami. Still would get Hami out of all that. Now, the only thing is we would get their first round pick from this year, which I believe is, I've got to pull it up real quick, 2025 NBA draft. But we gotta take their pick. Oh my gosh. Come on now. Don't freeze up on me now. There we go. So, the Heat this year are going to be picking at pick 20. And this is from Golden State. So, we go into the draft with pick 7, pick 20, get a young big like Kyle Ware. I'm butchering the hell out of his name. My bad. Khalil Ware. Get Khalil Ware. Get Jaime Jaquez. Get a veteran with championship experience like Wiggins. And get another bench guy like Pelle Larsson. and a first-round pick this year, and 2031 top 10 protected first-round pick. Who knows what that turns into? And trade bait. And all we would have to give up is just Zion. Just Zion. Nobody else. No, you know what I'm saying? They're not going to be like, hey, what about Trey? Or, hey, what about Herb? Or, hey, what about CJ? Or, hey, what about this? You know, like, nobody is asking for nothing else in this scenario. These are just hypothetical scenarios. Personally, I like the first trade a lot more. Personally. You know what I'm saying? We walk out of it with a king's ransom. But, I mean, for a player like Zion, who is averaging 25, 7, and 5 on nearly 60% shooting, we need to get the most amount of value if we are going to trade him. I don't want to trade him. I hope he is the untouchable player. I hope he is the one at the very, 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 very least. Because players like him do not grow on trees. Man, I was rewatching his highlights at Duke. One of the greatest single years of college ball that I've ever seen. Just that whole year in general, though. That was a great year for college ball. But the way Zion was playing, that young man was on top of the world. He was lights out. He's shown flashes. I still believe that he can. I keep talking about it. I'm going to be saying it till I'm blue in the face. I'm going to keep beating the dead horse. But that playing game, right, last year in a sense, two seasons ago, against the LA. 40 points against Bron. Need I say more? Need I say more? More games with 25 plus and over 60% shooting than anybody under the age of 25. And he's not even 25 yet. And there's really people out there who are really trying to say that, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to Zion's career, the issues and problems are his career. No. Is he a perfect player by any means? No. Right? He still has to work on, you know what I'm saying, he still has to work on his rotational defense, still has to work on expanding his offensive repertoire, and he's got to take better care of his body. Like, these are all things that are very reasonable. These are all things that are possible. So I still I ain't giving up on Zion. I still think he can turn around, but you know what I'm saying, sometimes the cords get cut before anything else deeper goes on. So we going to see. But that first trade package, if the Heat put together something like that, I could see President Dumars listening and also being like, you've caught my attention. You've got me to look into this now. So, hey, y'all let me know what y'all think. Personally, I think the first trade package is a bit better with the value that we would get. But the second one I also could see happening. Needless to say, I still am saying that the best trade for a player like Zion is going to be a player like Giannis. But it all depends on how that even gets set up, because we have all their first round picks for the next 3 years. But they got Giannis, right? They're holding the cards at hand. He's not an unrestricted free agent, so like he's gotta be traded. He's got like there's all these different little factors. So we have to make sure that we come correct. And if we come correct with an offer for Zion, and maybe another team, you know, the third team chimes in, maybe, you know, that changes things, and we end up with Giannis. But that's really the only player that I would be like, yeah, of all players to trade Zion directly for superstar. But outside of that, not really feeling that one. Ain't really feeling that one. And then picks, right? Young players. You need to give forth assets. That's the only way. So that goes for any team that's out there that's like, we want to trade for Zion. Well, here is how. Assets and high caliber talent. If you have those two things, President Dumars will give y'all a call, or if y'all call, he's going to pick up, he's going to listen to you. But, you know, we're going to see how things play out. We still got a whole NBA Finals. Can't wait. I'm very excited. This upcoming Thursday, Game 1. And we're going to see what happens. You know what I'm saying? If OKC wins, teams are definitely going to look at the model success for OKC, how well they've been able to do with drafting, the fact that they are still killing the game. Sam Presti is out here on this Howie Roseman type of swag. Or maybe the other way around. But Howie's got multiple Super Bowls. Sam Presti is hoping to get his first NBA championship. But it's very likely that he is. It's very likely. But when you got to look at the roster, right, look at how it was assembled. Look how it came together. So I think it'll be good for basketball for a team like OKC because it will get teams to look back at the fact that, hey, build through the draft first and foremost. This expecting every big free agent to come in and kill it. It sounds nice in theory. It sounds nice on 2K, but reality is a whole different thing. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to pick on them, right? But we thought with the DeJounte trade, especially fresh off the year that we had, that, we're going to go from in that 7 to 8 seed range to at least 4th, 5th. Could have been any more wrong, but we also had a lot of injuries. But injuries are a part of the game. Hopefully, knock on wood, nobody is getting injured this year. Hopefully everyone can stay healthy, play at their fullest health, play at their fullest potential, and we can see what we could do with this roster because there's still a lot of intrigue there. You know what I'm saying? There's still a lot of intrigue just with the guys that we got now, and regardless of who we end up moving. I'm going to keep it real. And who we end up drafting. But who we draft might end up getting moved for a trade. I mean, there's all these different things. There's said to be a high probability and prospect that someone big is on the move this offseason. Like that we don't even know of, basically. I think Sham said this a couple weeks ago. I saw somewhere. I was like, scrolling through Reddit, looking at different stuff, looking at different perspectives that people's having. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm very excited to see what happens though, as far as post draft, because I feel like that as well is going to be interesting in how teams go about free agency, right? Because they might be able to be like, hey, well, we got our guy. We got the type of player that we need. Why not give it a go versus, swing and miss in free agency? Now you're well over cap. Now, you know what I'm saying, you drag that player's value down, so no other team wants to pick him up. It's just overall a bad situation. But the free agency is definitely going to be impacted by the draft. The draft is definitely going to be impacted by the finals. We're trying to get to the playoffs. We're trying to get to the finals. So we got to build a better roster, and I'm excited to see what we do this draft upcoming and the next on. But make sure, as much as possible, that you are staying up to date with your Pelicans Daily. Make sure as much as possible you're staying up to date with your Pelicans Daily content. Make sure that you're following Fan Arch on Instagram and all other social media platforms. And make sure that you're liking, sharing, and subscribing to this YouTube page. I appreciate y'all. As always, it's always a pleasure to talk ball. If y'all want to DM me on Instagram and tell me, yo, your takes were great, or, man, your takes sucked. Either way, I value the interaction. I value the love. I love reading through the comments. It's been a blast so far. But we'll see what happens. One of these trades could very well happen. And I think there's a lot more that's going to happen moving forth that y'all want to make sure you're staying up to date with me. Because I'm going to be breaking it down and covering. So don't go nowhere. Come back, for another time. But make sure y'all have a great rest of your day, your evening, your morning, however so. Spread love and positivity. Like, share, subscribe. This has been a great episode. Dylan Bruton signing out.